Are you ready to have a blue Christmas? That's what it's going to be today on Turntables and Tea. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cory.
And if you couldn't tell by the intro, we are kicking off our holiday albums this month with 1957's Elvis's Christmas Album. At the end of our last episode, I said there's not always a lot of tea with Christmas albums, but if you're Elvis in 1957, there's going to be tea. So that was part of the reason that I picked it. And also the fact I've been dying to talk about Elvis ever since I saw Baz Luhrmann's awesome movie Elvis this year. If you haven't watched it, just do it after you're done listening to the podcast. That's all I ask, because you're missing out, people. Including you, actually,
including me.
You haven't seen it.
I know. It's on the list now, but I need to put it in my scene list, and it is not there yet.
Yes, such a great movie, and I watched it again, and it was still good the second time. That's how you know it's good. So, all right. Still hit for me. That's what matters. Anyway, but we are not in the Baz Luhrmann fantasy land. We are actually in real life for Elvis we're going to discuss. So, I'm not going to explain who Elvis is. You all know who he is. If you don't, just Google him, because American icon, to put it lightly. Really an American legend. That's really what he is. And in 1957, he had broken onto the music scene nationally the year prior and taken the world by storm. And nothing was ever the same since, because he just broke open that door and really helped bring rock and roll to a mainstream audience, for better or for worse. That's a subject of debate, but for better or for worse, he did. And so, in 1957, you may or may not know, Elvis had a Svengali manager named Colonel Tom Parker, played by Tom Hanks in the movie. And this colonel really had a lot of influence over Elvis and really was very, very controlling. And Elvis would often do projects he didn't want to do because the colonel said he had to do it. And one of those was this album.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was all Colonel Parker's idea. And actually, this particular thing isn't really seen in the movie, but you will see how Colonel Parker's mind works. And he's thinking of that Christmas commercialism at one point, especially in the film. It's actually my favorite sequence of the film, where there's a battle over what Elvis's 68 comeback special will be. And it's a really wonderful sequence, but I'm not going to spoil it too much because you haven't seen the movie, but it's my favorite portion of it. But in there, you kind of see like Colonel Parker's like, we have to do Christmas because, of course, money, because that's his concern.
And at this point, Christmas albums were allowed to chart, right, on the Billboard. Didn't they do away with that in the 60s and 70s? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, the charts were pretty new at this time, the Billboard charts. They're still kind of coming into the form that we know them somewhat today.
Okay.
Like the Hot 100 as we know it wasn't established until 1958, and there were some other obscure charts that don't exist now. So it was a bit of a different thing how it was calculated, actually. And there wasn't as much of a system at this point in time. But I think like all the songs charted all at once on this album, which is odd to think about. But yeah, Elvis wasn't all about doing this album because he was 22 at this point in time. But he did it. He did most of the songs within 2 days. And on the original edition of the album, there were 4 gospel songs that he had released in the spring of 1957. And gospel was actually something Elvis was very passionate about. And we will get into that when we discuss those tracks. But long story short, the album was a huge success. In its initial first 2 releases in 57 and 58, it sold 3 million copies in the US, which is impressive. And after a bit, it did go out of print, but in 1970, the album was reissued with a different track listing under RCA's Camden label, and then it was reissued again in 1975 under the Pickwick label, and that version is really the one that cemented this album's iconic status, because it was that edition, the reissue, that went diamond in the US. It was one of the top-selling catalog titles after Elvis's death in 1977, this was one of the things people went to, and it makes sense. Christmas albums do tend to sell well.
Definitely. The Camden and the Pickwick are different albums.
No, they're the same album.
Okay. Got you.
They have different cover arts.
Got you. And none of these songs were re-recorded for those releases. It was these recordings just remastered.
So it was 8 of these recordings.
Got you.
And 2 other songs that had been previously done. It was a budget album. It was slapdash. Elvis didn't record anything new for this release.
Okay, that's what I meant. I apologize.
Yeah, no.
Gotcha.
It was not re-recorded. It was the original repackaged with slightly different track listing. And we'll get into all of that, of course. But they were doing something, very different. And and it continued to sell. The original was eventually reissued in the late 90s, and now it's 6 times platinum.
Yeah, I believe it. There's a lot of iconic. I didn't even start with this earlier on. I wanted to ask you, are you a big Christmas listener? Do you love Christmas music? Or what would you say 1 to 10? Where you at with Christmas music?
Honestly, I would say like 3 or 4.
Okay, see, I'm like a 9, 10. Like I'm going to a thing we do with my family and extended family every year this weekend, where we all get together and watch White Christmas, and we've been doing it ever since. But I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a pretty big Christmas nut as far as the music goes. In fact, our last guest, Sam, when he was working with me in kitchens back in the day, I soured him a little bit. And that might be the understatement of the year, but from listening to Christmas music, because after Thanksgiving, I'm an everyday, all day Christmas listener until Christmas. I'll take a little bit until New Year's. I'm a purist in that sense. I'm not going to start before. It has to be Santa Claus hitting that Macy's Day Parade, and then boom, let's put on some Christmas tunes. I got off on a tangent there.
It's all right. We
a super lover of the Christmas sound. But yeah, like I was saying, iconic all the way across, stuff that I recognized immediately as a huge Christmas listener. So would you say triple diamond? I can believe that.
Yeah, I mean, like 17 million in the US it sold, so that does make it the highest selling Christmas album ever. And not surprising, this is Elvis at his height of popularity. The second highest is actually Kenny G's Miracles.
Okay.
Which kind of surprised me. I would have thought Mariah would have been over Kenny G, but I guess not. That might change over time, though. Who knows? But
true.
Good luck beating this one, honestly. But yeah, I really picked this more out of like some of the stuff I knew, of course, because they're well-played songs this time of year all the time. But I really did a lot out of curiosity in the artist, because he's a fascinating individual. Did he have his faults? Most definitely, but I'm undoubtedly intrigued by him, as are many people, clearly, because the movie was a huge success. 286 million worldwide gross. That's crazy. Yeah. And he died 45 years ago. So Elvis Presley is somebody who still really captures the public's imagination. And my interest in him went to an all-time high because of this film.
And he might still be alive. You never know.
Oh, yes, the conspiracies. The conspiracies. Yeah, so that was kind of my main reason for picking this. I've just been really dying to discuss Elvis, and wasn't going to be my pick at first, but I decided, nope, we're going to do it, and I shockingly didn't choose a diva. I was really on a roll with the divas these past few months.
As a Christmas lover, I have to ask you, what was your original pick? Or what was your pick going to be?
Christina Aguilera's My Kind of Christmas.
Okay.
Which
it's a good one.
Is a banger, in my opinion, but
it was very hard to pick for this. And we'll get, I'll announce my pick at the end of this podcast here, but it's tough for me, man. I got so much love out there. I might have found the next podcast we're going to do. We'll just do Christmas albums the whole year. No, I joke, but I have so much love for this genre. So it was tough.
Well,
good pick though. This is a turntables and tea type of pick here.
Yes.
Stuff that
And
we're not necessarily all the way familiar with, but there's all types of points to talk on it.
oh yes, and also I don't like Christmas as much as I used to. Thank you, seasonal affective disorder, but you know what? We're gonna do it anyway. So without further ado, let's get into Elvis's Christmas album.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Classic. High bar here. So, this album opens with a pure rock and roll Christmas song, Santa Claus is Back in Town. This was written by Lieber and Stoller, who are huge hit songwriters of the 50s and 60s, and they wrote quite a few of Elvis's early hits, most famously Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock, both of which are legendary. And Jerry Lieber is from Baltimore, too, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
But funnily enough, Elvis was working with them on songs in this Jailhouse Rock era when he began working on this, and he asked the guys to do a Christmas blues song. They came to him with it in 15 minutes. They wrote Santa Claus is Back in Town.
And it was written for this album, right? Like,
yes.
This is, okay.
This is one of the two pure originals on this album. Written for Elvis. He was the first to do it. Though, of course, one of the songs he might as well have done originally, but we're not there yet. So he did this, and yeah, this is pure rock and roll Christmas, and it does have that great 12-bar blues, which I love, and this song is raunchy.
Woo!
I mean, I was shook up to hear this one. I was like, he's Santa and he's coming down your chimney tonight? Whoa. So much innuendo, but it's great. But you hear this is like, this is why the parents didn't like this guy. Okay.
It's Elvis, like it's pure Elvis. And you know what the crazy part is? First listening to this until I read up on it and went back, I didn't even go at the double entendre. But then once my eyes were open, I said, whoa, all right, Elvis, you better calm your butt down with this, man. He gets wild. You're totally on point with that 12-bar blues, beautiful rock and roll that we get right off. What a way to open a Christmas album, especially if you're Elvis, you know, doing what we love, even the risqueness of it. I really like this one. This is one that I think doesn't, even though it's been in a bunch of movies, this is one that I don't think gets enough rotation or play in the rotation as far as local radio stations throughout the Christmas season.
Well, if the kids are in the car, they're probably not going to want to play this, because the only other dirty Christmas song I can think of on this level is Lady Gaga's Christmas Tree.
Oof, you never heard James Brown Christmas then?
No, I have not. I'm sure it's wild though.
I gotta put I have a raunchy Christmas playlist on Spotify that I'll share with you that my friends and I have built through the years, and there's some hilarious stuff in there.
Oh, I'm sure, but does it have Christmas Tree on it though?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. And now I have to add it on.
Oh yeah, totally.
You're the addition of the year.
Yeah. The only place you'll want to be is underneath her Christmas tree.
Oh, there it is.
So an underrated Christmas banger in my opinion, but so is this one. And even though it doesn't get as much rotation, it's still quite well known, and it's been covered several times by people such as a diverse group of people have covered this. Quite a few country singers, most notably Dwight Yoakam. I don't think this should be a country song because country is the least sexy genre I can think of, but the best cover I saw, at least my personal favorite. So this song has also been featured in several movies, and I don't always go for the Netflix Christmas movies, but I found out one from 2018 called The Christmas Chronicles, starring Kurt Russell as Santa, included Kurt Russell performing this song and singing it with Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul. And it's a great turnaround moment because in 1979, Kurt Russell played Elvis Presley in a TV movie directed by John Carpenter.
There you go.
And you know me, I love the full circle stuff
Oh,
like that. I
yes.
am all about that. So I think that is awesome. And Kurt Russell looked like he was having a blast doing it. And well, how can you not like Kurt Russell? He's a good time.
Heard that. Yeah.
I think at least he seems like it. I'd have a drink with him.
As much of a Christmas listener as I am not a Christmas movie guy per se, but that one's good. That one's one I will watch.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure it's not like the best Christmas movie ever. I'll talk about that movie later in this episode.
Heard.
But anyway, the only postscript I have to this song is this is the tea with it. After this album, unfortunately, long story short, because of Colonel Parker, Lieber and Stoller didn't work with Elvis after this.
Wow.
Elvis went to the army months after this album was released, and upon his return, Elvis recorded some songs they'd written earlier, but they did not work together again, and just what a loss, because they definitely created some amazing music together, including this song. And Lieber and Stoller did not lose their touch in the 60s. They continued to make hits. And it does make me a little sad to think there could have been more music from these guys, but that didn't happen. And that is a real shame, in my opinion. But at least we have this wonderful, raunchy Christmas song. So thank you, guys. Thank you for that. Elvis, Lieber, and Stoller, we appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
And now we're on to a more standard song, the most controversial song on this album, White Christmas. I'm guessing you know this one. It was written by Irving Berlin in the early 1940s, originally covered by Bing Crosby. Highest selling single of all time. And Elvis did it for this album and based it on the arrangement done by the Drifters a few years earlier. But there were a couple of urban legends that went around surrounding Elvis's recording of this song. So rumor has it that Irving Berlin asked that Elvis's version not be played on the radio, and that he thought it was a profane parody of his cherished Yuletide standard. And the other urban legend is that a DJ was fired for playing it.
Yep, I've heard both. I think the craziest part about all that, and I won't go too far because I want you to keep going on this one, but the fact that Irving Berlin hadn't even, from what I read, hadn't even heard the Drifters one because it was played on black radio. So he didn't even realize it was there per se. Because this is a direct ripoff.
Yeah. And really, a lot of people didn't know the Drifters version, sadly, because of it only being played on black radio. It actually didn't really come to prominence until it was featured in Home Alone in 1990, which is crazy to think about. But it doesn't sound like these urban legends are actually true. It does sound like they've been debunked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so... yeah, there's no definitive proof of Irving Berlin asking this not to be played on the radio. And the DJ story, apparently it was just a publicity stunt. The DJ was back weeks later.
Heard.
So a great publicity stunt, though.
Right.
And an urban legend for over 60 years now. So
fake news is alive and well in 1957.
Oh, yes. Yes,
if you look at it, the pop machine, with what you were saying with those two guys, those writers leaving and him being moved by I can't wait to watch this movie now, but like by a manager who is out for money only. It's wild to see what we see today, even on a Britney Spears type of level, all the way back in 57. Greed will do it.
Yeah, it definitely will. But yeah, I mean, as for the song itself, you're right. It's pretty much a ripoff of the Drifters version, and it's a nice arrangement. This is a highlight for me. It's definitely not as good as Santa Claus is Back in Town.
Yeah, I mean, here's where I start to go Grinch, I guess. But my first note on this, we go back to me being a purist and the whole nine. My first note was, least favorite White Christmas rendition I've ever heard in my life. And
Ooh.
I immediately realized that it was a ripoff, or, you know, that he was literally singing the Drifters version, because I love that version so much. Really, I love the when it goes super high and comes in the I'm dreaming, which you had never heard, and you never really will hear anything as original of a take on White Christmas, in my opinion. But he can't do it, and he's not hitting it. And it's crazy because if you go, or I went back and listened to this track a bunch, we're even left with the starting, like they didn't even edit out the studio take. So you can hear him be like, take 9, and Elvis says, oh, it's Greek to me, which I can only imagine is maybe him looking at sheet music and being like, I don't know how to read this. But, and I'm not talking shit on Elvis, but I'm just saying, you know, we're at take 9. Here we go. Oh, just my least favorite, man. This one, after Santa Claus is back in town, this is what you put on track 2. Get out of here.
I have to agree. It's a bit too slow for me. And yet this is just one of those songs. It's been done how many times? Elvis just unfortunately doesn't really bring anything new to it. So yeah, probably my least favorite. No, it is my least favorite on side 1 for sure.
If he would have just done it Elvis style, and again, who knows who's in his ear, who, you know, how the production went on this.
The impression I'm under is it was intentional to go ape the Drifters.
Heard.
Because he had his own backing singers here, the Jordanaires. I think it was pretty, this was what he wanted to do with it.
Heard. Man, fell too flat for me.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite a highlight, but fortunately, I think the next song's a bit better. We've got Here Comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. This was originally by Gene Autry. This version slowed down quite a bit from that one. And Elvis really is in his low register on this one. And honestly, in this, the way he sings this song does remind me of Sinatra a bit, the way he's bending the notes, kind of. I think it's very interesting, and it's definitely pretty doo-wop influenced. I do think the arrangement is too slow, because I feel like that's kind of a joyful thing, but also, admittedly, maybe I prefer Gene Autry's version because it is featured in a pivotal scene in the best Christmas movie of all time, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Heard that.
So there's that.
Yeah, the Gene Autry one, I enjoy. For me, this is my version of Here Comes Santa Claus. This is my joint. And when we're looking at it from an Elvis standpoint, you talk about those low registers and that bending. That's the Elvis sound that I hear automatically in my head. The vocal tones that go along with the gyration of the hips. Here comes Santa Claus. Like that's that perfect Elvis that I look for. And for me, this is my Here Comes Santa Claus. This is the one I'll play all season long. This is my favorite one. The backing vocals hit perfect on this composition, I feel like. And they all end on this really great tone, which I like. And sadly enough, a couple times in this album, the endings of the songs are really misses for me. But yeah, this is my jam. Here Comes Santa Claus.
All right. I'm glad to hear that. I still like it. I just might be biased because of Christmas Vacation.
And I feel you there. It's a tough one. That's a tough second right there. But got to give it to the old Elvis swinging that just that swung version. You go back to when you're saying the tempo's there. I feel you. It definitely is a down tempo, but that swung version for me is Elvis. And I like that. And that's what I was looking forward to on this, because I knew I didn't know all the tracks. And I hadn't heard the album in its entirety before. And I was looking for Elvis takes on stuff. And this one hit it right on the head for me.
I'm glad to hear it. I have to say, I think he hit that one better than he did the next song. For me, I'm afraid. I'll Be Home for Christmas. So this one dates back to World War II. It's a World War II themed Christmas song. It's about a soldier being away from his family at Christmas, which is a hard thing. And this is a song that's held up over the years because sadly there have been wars since World War II, and it's a relatable thing for many people, unfortunately. It was originally a hit for Bing Crosby and written by Kim Gannon and Walter Kent. I think Elvis sings the song okay. The problem is he would have sung it better after he had a kid, I think. I think he would have done a better job on this song if he'd done it in like 69, 70, even the second Christmas album he did was 71. I think it would have had more depth there because he had a love for a child at that point in time. At this point in time, he was the child leaving his parents. Like when he went to the army, he wasn't married. He didn't have children. He was leaving his parents behind. He was devastated to leave his mother behind. So it's a really different dynamic that he had at this time than what is presented in this song. And because of that, I just think it would have hit a lot different if he'd done it later. But that's just my opinion.
I like the fact that you think about the emotions and everything that goes on, bringing that dynamic. Regardless of that, for me, and I do agree with you there, you know, if you don't have that mindset, you're going to miss a little bit. But for me, I am not a big fan of the way he sings this in this version. It feels a little empty, in my opinion. There's a place where he goes on mistletoe and he holds it out in this weird rhythm where it's hung out there a little too long. It's composed nice as far as everything else. I feel, again, in my opinion, I just feel like he fell short singing this one. And this is the first one on the album where the ending is the backup singers by themselves. It's like, what are you doing? We're not all going to end. It felt really empty. And I love this song. This is one of those tear to your eye, you know, whether it's the child, the mother, the wife. This is that military longing song. So it fell short for me on this one.
All right. So fell short for both of us for different reasons, but we're in agreement. But now we're on to the big kahuna of this album, the standard of this album that we hear every holiday. If any song from this album you hear, it's Blue Christmas. And believe it or not, Elvis was not the first person to sing this song. 5 people had done it before him, and it was written by Billy Hayes and J.W. Johnson. However, it might as well be an Elvis original because his is obviously the definitive version. He definitely made it his own with having the Jordanaires and Millie Kirkham on backing vocals. And Wikipedia noted that he replaced the major and just minor thirds with neutral and septimbal minor thirds. And with that, he created a modern holiday standard. This is one of those rock and roll Christmas songs, pure rock and roll Christmas. And you hear it every year, and there's a reason for that, because I think with the most popular Christmas songs and their most popular versions, they can definitely fade into the background after a while. But to actually listen to what they're doing with virgin ears, I guess, as we would say, it's pretty impressive, and he really does deliver a heartfelt vocal on this. And even though the lyrics are a bit sad, because it does tap into heartbreak during the holiday season, it still has enough of that joy in its arrangement, I think, that it all comes together very well. And I'm a fan of Blue Christmas. This is one of my favorite Christmas songs, and I hope it reaches a new chart peak this year.
Heard that. What's the peak up to now?
26.
Okay. Go on, Blue Christmas. For me, I've already touched on the fact that I was looking for Elvis takes on Christmas songs, on songs, period. And you said it, and I love that you said it, because I didn't think that we would say it on this album, but took a song and spun it on its head. It really did, took it and made it his own. For me, the production on this song sounds better than the production on the rest of the album. And I don't know if it was a different recording situation or what was going on, but for me, this is the most perfect song on the album as far as production and composition, really, period. This is a great one. This is the perfect Elvis Christmas song in my mind. And there's not much that listening to it over and over again can take away from it. You're totally right. When you listen to this, it is done to perfection, and what they're doing is so awesome. But yeah, it stands out to me.
Yes, it does. And it's funny when you think about the movie and all this Christmas special brouhaha. Of course, this song did make it into his 68 comeback special, and that's a great version as well. And as soon as he starts it, the screams start like, oh, Blue Christmas, because just one of those classic Elvis songs, period, not just for Christmas time. This is a signature Elvis Presley joint right here. It's always going to be one of the first songs that people think of when they think of Elvis.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. And unsurprisingly, when this album was reissued, it began with Blue Christmas, which a bit odd structurally, honestly, but of course you're going to lead it off with that signature song. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, especially in that day and age right there, you're maximizing. That's the way to do it.
That was the way to do it, and they did it. And Blue Christmas hasn't gone anywhere, and I hope it never does.
There you go.
But we've got the other Elvis original to close out side one of the original album, Santa Bring My Baby Back to Me. This is an original tune for him. It was written by Aaron Schroeder and Claude Demetrius. This is a nice tune. I think that overall of the songs here, this one to me is the closest to just what Elvis was doing, period, at the time, not on a Christmas album. This just sounds like a standard Elvis jam. It just happens to have Christmas-themed lyrics. And you know what? I think it works. The only issue is I think it's too short. It's not even 2 minutes long, and it's not long enough to really make that big impact. It just, even if it were just a bit longer and they put something else in there, it would make more of an impact. It's a nice float by of a song. It just, I wish it didn't float by, that's all.
It's crazy because even with the coda at the end, it's still under 2 minutes. Like, it's so short, man, but it's awesome. And it's a great Elvis way to end this side of the album, in my opinion, too. Just like you said, this is Elvis. You know, this sounds like something that's going to come off any album he's doing before or after, right in that period. That walking bass line is so super cool and keeps a great tempo going into the second side. We talk about this a lot, but you have to, at this point, you have to expect your listener to stop the record and flip it over and take that action. So it's, in my opinion, but I think I speak for both of us, it's super important that that last track on side one leaves you up and leaves you wanting more.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think we know that was a bit lost with the reissue of the album because they wanted to maximize, of course, and they really took away from the structure of the original, which is one thing I appreciate about this, because side one has the secular Christmas songs. We flip it over, we get the religious spiritual songs.
Yeah.
And with that, side two begins with a Christmas standard, O Little Town of Bethlehem, one that goes way, way back to the 19th century. And I mean, what a beautiful, heartfelt vocal performance here. This is one of those songs where you can really tell that Elvis Presley really felt these gospel spiritual songs when he sang them, because this was what he grew up singing. He started singing in church, and these songs were very deep and personal to him, clearly. They were, at the end of the day, his favorite songs to sing, and he got a lot of acclaim for doing it. And this is the first album where we're seeing him dip into that, and it became a motif throughout his career because he ended up putting out 3 gospel albums in his lifetime after this. So, and I have not heard every version of this song, but I feel confident saying this is my favorite. I think this is the best one because just what a beautiful vocal, great arrangement to complement it to. Just, you really feel him on this, and I'm comfortable calling this the definitive version of O Little Town of Bethlehem.
There you go. It's such a great way to do it. Open up this second side. I think it's so cool that you touched on it, but this was commonplace apparently this year for the secular songs to be on the second side because Frank Sinatra went ahead and did the same thing on his album. I don't know if that was because it was easier to leave on a whole side of songs for a different group, or you don't have to keep flipping or skipping. That being said, this one, I love the attention to, or even just the love period, keeping this so pure and gospel. I mean, we have this very beautiful but very modest church organ that is just rolling throughout this. It's such a heartfelt rendition. I really love this. It is my second, but only to Nat King Cole, as far as my favorite Little Town of Bethlehem. This is one of my top 10 Christmas songs, period. Little Town of Bethlehem. And I was really happy. This is the first time I had heard this version. I was really happy. Super well done. Hell of a way to start a second side.
Agreed. Absolutely. And continuing that, we've got now the record for the oldest song we've ever covered on this podcast, Silent Night.
Yes, awesome.
Written in 1818 by Franz Gruber and Joseph Moore. Yeah. So this is, I think, featured on every Christmas album ever.
Right.
I can't think of one that doesn't have this song. And, oh boy, here's the hot tea take. This might just be me being a Scrooge. I'm just really over this song. No version of it has much of an arrangement to me. If I want to hear something uplifting, I think it needs to have a bit more pep in its step than Silent Fucking Night. I'm sorry, but this song is, musically, it's kind of a dirge. I hate to say it, just to me, and I know you're supposed to find it uplifting, but I've never found it particularly uplifting. And I think it's because of that arrangement. And, well, I'm just over it. This is, again, on every Christmas album ever. You will always hear it at Mass on Christmas. And we all had to sing it. I know I had to sing it in elementary school music class. I'm sure everybody had to sing it in the choir. And maybe that's me being a Scrooge. But yeah, I'm over it. I'm just over it. Unfortunately, Elvis doesn't really bring anything new to the song for me, but I'm not going to put that on him because nobody does in my book. I can't think of anybody who really did an amazing version of Silent Night that really made it their own and reinvented the wheel. And I mean, it's a simple song. People like it the way it is. That's why no one's going to reinvent the wheel. But I don't know. This has never been a favorite Christmas song of mine at all.
Heard. Speaking to it, you say we hear it at Christmas Mass every year. It's a very hymn-like song. I don't know if it was originally written as a church hymn, but it's a very hymn-like song. So, we get that dirginess about it, that slow goingness about it. As far as this version of Silent Night, I think Elvis struggles just a tiny bit. I think he doesn't hit as strong as he hits Little Town of Bethlehem. He definitely doesn't hit it as strong as he's been hitting on side A. I love the piano accompaniment behind this. It's a nice little, just clean, grand. And I mean, even on the Christ the Savior is Born riff at the end, it's just, it doesn't hit correctly. This is one where, on the flip side of that coin, we hear it so much, it doesn't leave room for any failure inside of it. This one you really have to hit, or it's immediately noticeable. So a tough one to do as well. But for this one, not my favorite Silent Night.
All right. Well, yeah, enough of that.
All right.
But now we're actually really done with the Christmas songs on the album, because
I'm so glad you said it. I'm so, people don't get to see us because we're doing a video chat, and Charlie stopped right there because I threw my hands up. I'm so glad you said it, because I thought I was going to be that Grinch again, man. But we're done with the Christmas album. It's not a Christmas album after this.
Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
In my opinion.
No, it's not. And in fact, these were completely tacked on songs.
tacked on.
These four songs literally were released earlier in the year as an EP called Peace in the Valley.
Yep.
And they were just added to this album to fill it out, basically. And I mean, I guess that makes sense if you want to get a full album, but these aren't Christmas songs.
I'll take it and I'll repeat it when I do my grade, but we got 4 songs coming up. And
yes.
we'll go through them. You could have had him do "Oh Come All You Faithful," could have done "O Tannenbaum," you could have done "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen," you could have done "Mommy Kissing Santa Claus" wouldn't have fit on this side, but I mean the songs that would have lent themselves to his register, to his style of singing, and you still would have been Christmas. I don't understand it. I'm so glad. I'm sorry. I'm up in arms about that.
I mean, I'm wondering if it was a scheduling thing. Maybe they had him just recording too much of her stuff. I have no idea what the thought process was. Well, I think I know the thought process, but behind the first of these songs getting on this album, even though it's not a Christmas song. Track 9, Peace in the Valley, was the most significant song here to Elvis personally, because it was a song he sang in church, and particularly one his mom was fond of. So, at the beginning of 1957, Elvis made his final of 3 appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he insisted on closing the show with Peace in the Valley. And the sponsors, CBS, they were kind of like, no, you can't close with a gospel song. And he said, not even if he said, I told my mother I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it.
Heard.
Because Elvis was a mama's boy at the end of the day. Big time.
Heard.
I mean, he actually, I read, because the family was poor, he did sleep in the same bed with her into his early teens because there wasn't another bed.
Heard.
But, yeah, he was a mama's boy. So, he had a devotion to Miss Gladys Presley that never faded. So, yeah. This is probably why this song was included on the album. This was clearly an important song to him, even though it's not a Christmas song. It was written in 1939 by Thomas Dorsey for Mahalia Jackson, one of the very famous gospel singers ever, and one who's actually referenced in the Elvis film, so clearly a big influence on this artist. And, I mean, even though this isn't a Christmas song, I have to say, he does a beautiful job on this song. You can definitely tell that he felt this.
Most definitely. This one particularly, but a bunch of them are beautiful songs. You know, they're beautiful gospel songs. I can understand the connection to church especially at this time for Christians, period, with Christmas and church. I can understand that as far as why would you put gospel on here. It's just a reach. It's a little bit of a reach.
It is, and that's why, getting ahead of ourselves, these songs weren't included on the reissue.
Heard.
They went with different things, but, well, one of those songs wasn't even a Christmas song either, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, Peace in the Valley, definitely a Presley classic. I mean, it has Presley classic written all over it, even though it doesn't fit on the album. I'm just going to try judging these songs based on their own merits as much as possible, is what I'm going to do here.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Because that's what we have to do, because really this is a separate project.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, on to the next one. Not quite as classic as Peace in the Valley, in my opinion. I believe this is a 1953 song written by Irvin Drake, Irvin Graham, Jimmy Sherrill, and Al Stillman. It was a big hit for Frankie Lane in the early 50s. So this was actually a song I talked about on the Cher podcast, because she did a version of this in 1970, and that was the only other time I'd heard this song. But I thought, oh, this is one. Cher and Elvis actually have quite a few songs that they both recorded, because they're both interpreters of other people's material primarily.
Heard.
There's quite a bit of overlap between the two. Maybe a bonus episode, Cher and Elvis interpretations. Who knows?
Hey, they cross paths enough.
Yeah, but I'm getting really ahead of myself. So I definitely prefer Cher's version to this one, because and it's really as simply, it has a better arrangement than this. I think this arrangement's a bit of a dirge, and just a step down from the previous song, a beautiful tune. And this is more of a pop song admittedly, which it was a pop hit, but just not even close to that previous song at all. This is one of the weaker tracks here for me, actually. Easily one of the weaker songs on this album. So, yeah, I'll know. I'll know.
Yeah, this one is my least favorite on the album. This was released with Peace in the Valley, right?
Yes.
I
All
got
of
you.
these songs
All
were.
of them.
All of
Okay,
them were.
okay. It on its own merit, it really just slows the whole entire goings down. And for me, it doesn't add anything that Peace in the Valley hadn't already brought to my ears, you know? So it's like, it's just not for me on this one.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the song itself is just an okay song. I even said that on the Share podcast. I think it's just an okay tune. It's just not enough to work with in comparison to the prior song. And fortunately for that matter, the next song I think is a much better hymn than I believe. Take My Hand, Precious Lord, also written by Thomas Dorsey and recorded by Elvis influences Mahalia Jackson and sister Rosetta Tharpe. This was actually Martin Luther King Jr.'s favorite song.
Yep.
So, yeah, another beautiful vocal performance. This might be the most well-known version of the song, period, just because of its presence here, I'm thinking possibly. I'm not sure, though, but...
The most known on the album?
No, of the song overall.
Oh, heard. Yeah, I mean, look how many times it's been done. Such an iconic song, and I agree with you. This is probably the most well-known version of it. This one, for me, you talk about beautiful, talk about him as a gospel singer and his roots, whether it be, not whether it be with the early African-American gospel singers that he was listening to. This is such a beautiful piece. You can feel him all the way through this song. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Glad we're on the same page with that one. So
yeah, I mean, as we're giving them their own merits as songs. As far as putting this on the Christmas album, whoever made him do this or however tacked this on, shame on you. This is shame on you. Shame on you.
Yes, not a Christmas song, but a beautiful song. So
yes, indeed.
Just clearly part of a separate project, and the next song also definitely is. So we're at the closer of the original album now. It is No Secret What God Can Do is the name of the song. So this is a cover of a song by a guy named Stuart Hamblin. He did it in 1951. This is the longest song on the album, and this song has a pretty wild backstory involving a couple of famous people. So Stuart Hamblin was a radio personality, quite famous, but he got real into drinking and gambling and was just in a path of self-destruction. But in 1949, he converted to Christianity at Billy Graham's Los Angeles Crusade, and later on, he was meeting with John Wayne, the actor. If you don't know who that is, it's the real guy. And John Wayne offered him a drink, and Hamblin said no, and he explained it was because he found God. And John Wayne allegedly said, well, you got religion now? And Stuart Hamblin replied by saying, it is no secret what God can do. And John Wayne said, you should write a song called that. So, a more interesting backstory than the song itself, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I mean, I think it's fine. It's a nice song, but definitely a weak closer, in my opinion. Definitely a weak closer.
Yeah,
and
I'm totally with you on the closer, man. Why not put Take My Hand there? You flip those two? That's a hell of a way.
Or Peace in the Valley even would have been a better closer, but this is... and it's just a dirge to close it off on. I mean, I feel like this should be a more uplifting song, and I think the arrangement's so slow, it's not uplifting, in my opinion, at all. So, yeah, this one, little rough for me. Not my favorite. Might be my least favorite, actually. It toss up between this one and I Believe for least favorite on this album.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you haven't said that aren't coming straight out of my notes. I believe, and I know you're not big on the Silent Night, but I believe you could even put Silent Night here and had a better ender for a Christmas album.
Definitely.
You know? Yeah,
So,
I'm with you there. It's a second to, I believe, for my least favorite on the album. It's he can sing gospel. Yeah, I can't take that away from him on any of these songs, but just not totally there on this one for me.
and admittedly, I think Elvis saved some of the better classic gospel songs for his actual gospel albums, which was a smart move.
Of course.
I mean, I would have done that too. Like, yeah, wait to do How Great Thou Art so you can do it on an album, of course.
Heard.
But it's not helping us here. That's the issue. So
That is real.
and now that's the end of the standard album. But as I said with the reissue, these gospel songs were removed, track listing rearranged, 2 more songs included, and one opened side 1 and one closed the album. And I'd like to talk about those a bit too, because they're part of this story. So on the reissue, side 2 opened with a song called If Every Day Was Like Christmas. This was written and recorded first by Elvis's friend Red West, who was part of the Memphis Mafia, as they're known. And his version did flop, but Elvis did it the next year, and he made it to number 2 on the Christmas songs chart, which was a thing at this point in time. Yeah, this album has kind of a weird single rollout, so I didn't really get into it because I was just confused looking at it, honestly. But this I was a bit more clear about. But yeah, that was a pretty short-lived thing at this point in time, and it certainly got more exposure being included on this album, especially in such a prime spot. And yeah, I think this is a nice ballad, good Elvis vocal. I will say, based on the title, I would have expected something a bit poppier and peppier. That's not this, but I still enjoyed listening to it, and I do think it's more suitable for it than the gospel songs, certainly.
Most definitely. I mean, period, as a Christmas song. Is there a reason why this one doesn't get much play in rotation on radio these days? I like this song, but as a heart, you know, like I said, an avid Christmas listener, this one went way under my radar. I don't think I'd ever heard it until you shared it to me.
Yeah, I've never heard this one on the radio at Christmas, and well, that's a shame. I think it would be a good addition too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if it charted, you know, even
Yeah.
if it was the Christmas chart. It's a cool Christmas song. A little bit slower, like you said, than you would think it is, but it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it was just kind of decided the Elvis Christmas song is Blue Christmas, and that's what we're going to play every year. And I think it's a shame that not just Elvis, but any artist would be pigeonholed like that. I think we've seen the same thing with other folks too. Like, I think, for instance, Mariah's been pigeonholed with just her one Christmas song. Yes, it's a classic, but there are other original tunes that are good that we don't hear every year from Mariah when it comes to Christmas songs.
Also, this one, as far as him singing, we're at 66 when he puts this or records this.
Yeah.
It's a different Elvis voice. He knows exactly who he is. He hits notes longer and harder than he would or did when he was younger recording most of this stuff. So it also stands out. If you're listening to the Camden Pickwick version in its whole, it stands out as like, wow, this one is a different person. And it is.
It is. It was almost a decade's difference, but he kind of just got better and better for a while, I think, vocally. And speaking of which, I think this album probably closes in his prime, in my opinion, that 69-70 comeback period. The reissue Christmas album closes with a song called Mama Likes the Roses, written by a guy named Johnny Christopher, who wrote a couple other songs in addition to this one. And this was not included on an album. It was the B-side for Elvis's 1970 hit, The Wonder of You. And it got tacked onto this album. Again, this isn't really a Christmas song. There's one vague reference to the holidays, but I think that the theme of family, I'm guessing, is kind of why they put it in here. And I mean, it's a lovely tune, and again, I really think this is my favorite period of Elvis's career, the 69-70 comeback point that probably lasted up to about 72, I would say, 72, 73, because he really was showing everybody why he was the king again at this point in time, and it was really before the really sad, long decline. And I really think this song meant something to Elvis because of his mother, of course, and his mother had passed by this point. She died in 1958 while Elvis was in the army, and that definitely adds depth to this interpretation. And again, the vocals are richer and fuller than ever before because, I mean, this is the era he was doing Suspicious Minds. So, in my opinion, that's the peak Elvis song. And I think it is for a lot of people. Like, we're in a real newfound era for him, and it's just on full display here. I think it's a beautiful song, even if it's not really a Christmas song. I'm glad I heard it.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I heard it. You say on display, fully on display is a great way to put this. This is another strong voiced, top of his game Elvis. And you know, the connection between a mother who has passed and his thoughts of Christmas could have been the reason why this was an on here as the ender, a nod to his mom, and I totally respect that. In fact, even as a side two ender on the Camden Pickwick edition, it doesn't take me out of the album like the last four of the original edition did. So in that mindset, I wholeheartedly enjoy it.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's a much stronger album closer than the songs that we got on the original. So, yeah, and just a beautiful song, period. Nothing I can take away from that. And with that, that's it. That's Elvis's Christmas album. We got through it. Our first of the month. What is your grade for the album?
I gave it 2 grades. I gave it a grade for the original, and then I gave it a grade for the Camden Pickwick. For the original, it gets a C+ from me with an okay A side and so many missed opportunities in my mind on the B side. I said it before, but you've got "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," "O Tannenbaum," "God Rest You Merry Gentlemen." These are songs that could have been performed by a young Elvis at the time and would have lent themselves. Unfortunately, we got stuck with 4 gospel songs that really took me out of the listening of this Christmas album. Camden Pickwick edition, it elevates it to a B for me. We didn't really talk about the full track listing, but you go Blue Christmas, Silent Night, White Christmas, Santa Claus is Back in Town, I'll Be Home for Christmas side 1, then If Every Day Was Like Christmas side 2 opener, Here Comes Santa Claus, Oh Little Town of Bethlehem, Santa Bring My Baby Back to Me, and Mama Like the Roses. It stands as a full Christmas album. It stands as a realized Christmas album. White Christmas still isn't good. There's still some spots throughout the album, but it's a fully realized Christmas album. So for me, that edition gets a B.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with your grades verbatim because I was thinking overall between both versions, it's overall B for me, but you're right because the first with the C+, again, the gospel songs really do take you out of it, even though I think 2 of them are very good.
Yeah.
But overall, I just give the whole project a B because even if the gospel songs did take me out of it, I thought 2 of them were beautifully done.
Heard.
And I like how the original is sequenced in terms of the secular and spiritual. And I do think that the reissue is a bit more slapped together in terms of that.
Heard.
But I do think that the 2 extra songs given on that really elevated it, and it is more of a full Christmas album than the initial edition. So overall, I'm going to give the project a B, and really, even any low points I think are really outweighed by the highs here, and the highs are high. Because these are Christmas classics right here that we are talking about. This is not a joke. So, what is your favorite song on the album?
Here Comes Santa Claus. Like I said, that's my version. I wake up singing that in the Christmas season. So that's my pick off this album.
Can't fault ya. I'm gonna go with Santa Claus is Back in Town.
It's a good one, man.
I just, again, Lieber and Stoller and Elvis, great combination, and just what a fun, raunchy little tune. I love it. I love it. I really do. All right, there we have it. Christmas with the King.
There we go.
And now I'm ready to be surprised.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, that's
What
right.
is your pick for us?
Well, it's a tough one. I go avid listener. One that near and dear to my heart is John Denver, Muppet Christmas. I didn't think that was along the lines for us. I wasn't going to stay in 1957. So Frankie Sinatra, sorry, my boy. The Chairman's not my pick for this one. Harry Connick Jr. almost made his way in there, but we're going to stick with the King theme. A little guy who doesn't even realize that he's about to be a king, and his 4 other brothers. And we're going to go to 1970 with the Jackson 5 Christmas album.
Yes! Oh, I am so happy you said that, because actually, one of my favorite Christmas albums ever. What a fucking banger. That was actually my second choice after this one.
There you go.
I was getting so excited. I was really in the back of my head. I really hope it's the Jackson 5 Christmas album, and it is. And oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
You're just lucky that Spotify doesn't have the Star Wars Christmas album on there anymore.
Oh.
No.
Oh, Jackson 5. I actually have this album, the Jackson 5 Christmas album, on vinyl. So,
yes, sir.
I am excited. Yay!
Yeah.
All righty. Well, yeah, with that being said, we're doing Christmas with the Kings. I love it.
There you go.
I love that. Christmas with music royalty. But while we're waiting for that awesome trip down Motown, Santa Claus Lane is what I'll call it. Please follow this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And also follow us on social media at Turntables and Tea Podcasts. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And until then, try not to have too blue of a Christmas, because we're going to get funky next week.
Peace.